Good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Julia Lyman. I will be your host for today. I'm going to go over some advanced gradebook tips and tricks. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started. And at the end of the session, I will hold 5 minutes to answer any questions and answers that come through on the Q&A chat. All right, with further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is start with the far right tab and move to the left. So the first tip that we have today is underneath the Help tab. Always remember that when you come to the Help tab, you do have the ability to view our online gradebook manual. This is called the Using Good Online Gradebook. This will allow you to view any and all tutorials that we have regarding every aspect of the gradebook. Another helpful tip as well is our instructor resources. You can visit our instructor resources for any of the titles to view any helpful PowerPoints, formula sheets, or other documentation. The next tip that I'll show you is actually under the Tools tab. So we're going to go over to the left here, and it's underneath Display Options over here on the right. So underneath display options, we do have the ability to go in and select a default section to display. So this option does allow you, especially if you've taught previous sections, to select your current section as the default section to display. What this means is that whenever you go to any of your reports or any other sections in the gradebook, that particular section will automatically load for you. Another helpful tip is down here at the bottom. We have our Show Custom tab. If you select Show Custom tab, it will allow you to put a custom URL, and this can lead to additional resources or your own personal website to share with your students. You can also add a caption for that particular URL as well. Once you're done, you always just save your changes, and that'll go ahead and update for your students, of course. All right. The next thing that I want to show you is underneath the Assignments tab. So what we'll do is we'll go on over to our Assignments tab. And what I'm going to show you is from different sections underneath the Assignments tab. The first one is our lesson due dates. So underneath the lesson due dates, once you go into your template, you'll click on your section name. And a couple of interesting tips here, especially with setting up your course, is under the Show Additional Options. So under Show Additional Options, you may choose to want to control the pacing of your course. And if so, we do have a visible on column. What this does is if you enter a date in here, it'll hide those lessons until you're ready to cover them on that date. Once that date arrives, it will unhide those lessons and students can then begin working on those lessons. So I'll just click Hide Additional Options to close that particular section. And the next thing I want to show you is Set Prerequisites. So when you go to Set Prerequisites, this will allow you to go into any of your lessons over here on the left-hand side, and you can select a prerequisite for that lesson. So we'll go ahead and click on lesson 1.1, and you'll see that on the right-hand side here, I can come over to either my lessons or to some previous quizzes and tests. So for 1.1, we can then click the plus symbol by a specific chapter to select previously assigned lessons as a prerequisite and then save those changes. It's always going to ask you to confirm, of course, and we'll go ahead and click Save and Continue. All right. So once you set that prerequisite, it will display a P here, and that's really good to let you know or keep a reminder steady for you that you have assigned something that they need to complete first. When students go into their courseware, they will see a note that actually lets them know what assignments came before this lesson that need to be completed. Once you're done, you'll save your changes, and we'll move on over back to our Assignments tab. And we're going to go over some more tips there. So back underneath the assignments tab, the next one we have is under web test. So underneath our web test, you do have the ability to select any previously created test or to create your own test and assign it as a diagnostic test. What this means is you're giving the students a chance to take a test that's going to allow them to, number one, demonstrate their proficiency in certain areas in the course, but also give them a chance to test out of upcoming lessons. So what I'll do here is I'll select a previous test. I'll come over to our right-hand side and go to additional settings. Underneath additional settings, where you'll go is to the diagnostic test right here. Once you select it, it's just going to further inform you about how this works for the diagnostic testing, especially if you're using a customized lesson. And we'll just click continue. So right here, it's going to allow you to select your proficiency level. So we do recommend that when you're building a diagnostic test that you choose 4 to 5 questions per lesson to really measure that proficiency. Once you've selected your 4 to 5 questions per lesson and created your web test, you can come here to then indicate the mastery level that you would like them to achieve per lesson. So we put it at a default of 80% to align with the default curriculum and the certified mastery levels. Once you're done, you'll just click Save Changes. And how this translates to the courseware is students will then be able to take their diagnostic test. And once they're done, it will actually mark all of the lessons that they have proved that they are proficient in as completed, and they will receive credit for those lessons. The next tip that I will go to is underneath the assignments tab. So we'll go back here. And the next one is our student to-do list. So underneath the student to-do list, we do have the option of customizing how these lessons appear for students. So you do have the ability to go in and create your own headers. So if you want to break down your lessons or the organization of your course based on weeks or on modules, you can add a header using the Add Header button. Once you click Add Header, we can then enter in our new module or week name. We'll click Save. Once we've done that, we do have the ability to go in and reorder those modules as well. So you'll just select that module name, and then you can use the arrows up here at the top to quickly move them down. Now that we have our modules in place, now we want to move those lessons into those modules. So whenever you're ready to move those lessons into the modules, we'll just select the lessons that we would like to move. And then we'll come over to the top right here and go to Move Assignments To. We'll then click that drop down, select our module, and click Go. We can then repeat the same action, of course, for the next module. And then we just add those into those modules. At any time, it will display how many assignments you have in that module, especially if you have it in a collapsed view and you just want to make sure that you're putting in the appropriate number of assignments. If you need to delete a header, you can always select it, of course, and delete the header or rename a header. Once you're done customizing your list, what you'll want to do is go over to the top right here where it says Lock To-Do List Order. What this does is once you check it, it locks the order that you have created as the instructor of the course. You also have the ability to copy the same to-do list setup to another section. What's great about that is that you don't have to recreate these settings again. You'll just come to the top left corner here, click Copy to Other Section. You'll then select your section and click Copy. That way you've quickly reorganized for all of your sections for the upcoming semester. So what we'll do now that we've covered the student to-do list, is I'm going to go back to our assignments tab. And the next tip that I want to share with you today is underneath curriculum. So we know that it's always important to make the course ours and to make sure that we're setting it up to better suit our students in the way our course is set up for the semester. So what you'll do here is just like when you're editing your curriculum, you'll just come in and click on your section name. Once you're here, you'll see that we do have a plethora of settings at the very top of our lessons list. So I want to go over some of these settings with you just to give you more in-depth knowledge of what these will do for your course. So the first one is allow students to unsuccessfully attempt certify a certain number of times before requiring practice. So by default, this is not checked in a gradebook, so students can technically go to certify and try certify before ever opening practice. However, you do have the ability to come here in the curriculum and check this box. What this will do is this will allow students to unsuccessfully attempt that certify however many times that you feel you would like to give them. If they do not successfully master certify, you can then say, well, I want you to go back and to complete a certain percentage of practice. You can always enter a 0 here as well if you want to make sure that it's something that they do before certify. So if you say that I want students to go into practice always, no matter what, before certify, you can enter a 0 and it'll make sure that they go in first. Our next setting is right below this. We have our allow students to take enhanced practice sessions. This is currently in beta, but what this does, this new feature allows us to go in and we can make adaptive practice sessions for our students. This will make the students' practice session tailored to their performance. We've developed this feature by analyzing performance data of hundreds of thousands of students within Hawks. Enhanced practice sessions adjust the questions that students receive in practice, like I mentioned, based on their performance. So far, the results are promising. Students are missing 13% less questions in Certify and spending 15.6% less time in Certify when compared to control groups. Students are also 20% less likely to attempt Certify multiple times before passing. If you would like to enable this for your course, you can enable it, and we'll be happy to enable this on an individual instructor and section basis. So our next setting is right underneath this, is allow students to attempt any remaining questions after achieving mastery. So by default, our system will pull students out once they reach that particular percentage of mastery, and we'll let them know that they've certified and they can move forward in the course. But what this does is this allows students to then say, okay, I've certified, but I do want to finish these last few questions just for practice. And you can enable this and allow students to do so. Underneath that is our Flex Mastery. This allows students to retry a missed question with new values instead of receiving a strike. So of course, in the certified, students receive a strike whenever they get a question wrong. But if you find that you would like to give additional attempts to your students, you can come here to enable this setting and enter in the number of attempts you would like to allow them to have. All right. So our next one that I want to go over is over here on the right-hand side. You do have the ability to, of course, allow pauses and resume for certified sessions. So by default, this is set to 3, but if you find that you need to make less number of pauses or more, you can update this as well. And underneath that is allow students to review certified attempts. So previously, students couldn't review those attempts, but we do have it now where they can review their certified attempts, just like you see it on your gradebook side. You can also allow them to see a certain number of attempts as well. So that will conclude our overview of the curriculum gradebook tips. I also wanted to thank you all for joining me today. We will have a Q&A session, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to send them through. I'm always happy to go back over something for you or quickly answer your questions. If there's anything else that you have questions about, I'm always happy to connect with you as well. So we'll reserve this time for any Q&As. As I mentioned, if you have any other questions, feel free to send them through. For everyone else, thank you for joining me today. I do see that we do have a couple coming in. So we do have one to talk about Flex Mastery. So as I mentioned before, the Flex Mastery is found underneath the Assignments tab and Curriculum. Once you're in your curriculum, you'll see this setting here. Allow students to retry a missed question with new values instead of receiving a strike. So what this means is by default, when students are in Certify, if they miss a question, they have to continue through to the next question. And that way, if they only have 3 strikes, it'll count down those strikes. However, some instructors may want to give their students an extra attempt at that question instead of just pulling them out because they did not get that question correct. All right. So I'll leave the Q&A open for a little bit longer. I know we are a little bit above schedule, but I do want to make sure that we have a chance to answer your questions. So I have another one from the Edit Curriculum page. Is there a way to change the number of questions permitting random questions? So I want to take a look at this one. So if I'm trying to make sure I understand correctly. Are you wanting to keep some questions in order and then some random, or how exactly are you wanting to do it? I just want to make sure I understand. So if you're wanting to do the number of questions that are random questions, you can edit the actual lessons themselves by clicking on the lessons over here on the left to change the order of those questions. Whenever you go into that particular lesson, you can reorder it the way that you would like. If you decide to do a random level order, it's going to apply to all questions. I hope that answers your question. If not, please feel free to share some more details just to make sure that we are addressing it correctly. So we still have 12 more minutes for questions. So if there's anything that you have questions about, please let me know. All right, so it looks like those are all of the questions for today. I want to thank you all for joining me today to go over the advanced gradebook tips and tricks. If you have further questions that you think of after the webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll all be happy to assist you with those questions. Once again, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.